It's 4 p.m. We're bringing developing news.
And the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao. Some stories for watching this Monday, February 9. The House Justice Committee has approved the motion and committee report dismissing the impeachment complaints filed against President Bongbong Marcos Jr. The panel voted 39-4 or 39 versus 4 to adopt the committee report. Earlier, it ruled that the two complaints were sufficient in form but insufficient in substance.
President Bongbong Marcos will travel to New York in the United States for a working visit from March 8 to 11. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said Marcos will attend the opening of the 70th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. He will also deliver a message at a special session of the United States General Assembly and meet with several UN officials.
PHIVOX reports that Mayon volcano generated its largest pyroclastic density current or USON today at around 10:35 a.m. The USON produced a 1-kilometer tall brown ash plume, causing ashfall in several barangays in Kamalig and Ginobatan, Albay. Alert level 3 remains in effect over the volcano.
And the Department of Foreign Affairs Deputy Assistant Secretary Rogelio Villanueva has been named DFA spokesperson on maritime affairs. Rogelio previously served as Navy and Coast Guard officer. He has also served in the Philippine missions in Lisbon, Portugal, Vancouver, Canada, and Frankfurt, Germany, and was recalled to the Home Office in January of 2025. Senate Majority Leader Senator Mig Zubiri says the Kalayaan Island group belongs to the Philippines and should never be given up. In a statement, Zubiri said the country will never yield any part of its territory. He added that Senator Rodante Marcoleta should be given a chance to explain his statement, but reaffirmed that the Philippines will never relinquish its claims. In the meantime, Senate President Pro Tempore Ping Lacson said giving up the Kalayaan Island group is the same as giving up Luzon or the entire Philippines. He noted that under international law, first discovery and possession of unclaimed land is a recognized form of sovereign ownership. Zubiri's and Lacson's statements came after Marcoleta suggested that the Philippines give up KIG since it's not part of our exclusive economic zone anyway. And previously, of course, Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela, invited Marcoleta to the Kalayaan Island group. And here's what Marcoleta had to say about that invitation.
Sabi niyo kay Commodore Tariela, kasama si Justice Carpolo, and sino ba yung professor sa UP?
Si Batong Bakal.
Para sa isang friendly debate. Bago pa yung pagpunta doon. Para sa ganun maayos natin, para sa kapakanan ng ating mga.
And joining us today, wala si Tito Ronald. He's somewhere up north.
He's overseas.
Yeah, not north of the country.
But we do have Editor-in-Chief, Amy Pamintuan. Hi, Amy.
Hi, everyone. Happy Monday.
Oh, iba look ni Amy ngayon. Hindi siya ngayon
Bakit?
business attire.
Ano? Ano yun?
Iba look niya ngayon.
Hindi ka pwede,
Okay, define.
hindi ka pwede fashion commentator eh.
These are things I'd rather not go into.
What are you trying to say?
Nothing.
Oo nga eh.
I leave the fashion stickers to Raul
And
Yaman.
yet you alluded to her fashion, to her wardrobe for today, so you might as well
Just
complete
it's different,
it.
di ba? It's different.
Different.
It's a Monday, it's
different.
Amy's Monday fashion sense.
Amy talaga.
Ano?
I know. Ako, I have to, I have
Wala,
to wear...
puro intay-intay
I
na
have-
yun eh.
I have to wear red
yung,
because
yung
it's,
hearing on the, hearing on the West Philippine Sea. Yung iniintay namin kung magdidesisyon kung dadalhin sa plenary yung impeachment against Bongbong Marcos.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Tapos yung latest third impeachment complaint filed against Sara Duterte. Yan. Mga inaabangan natin ngayon, developing stories.
There are a lot of elements in the West Philippine Sea.
Oo nga.
But some of them, some of them are based on misconceptions.
Exactly.
Like among other things, a lot of people think that yung Pag-asa Island is within our EEZ. It is not. It's
not.
270 nautical miles from Palawan. So it's outside of our EEZ. So iba yung basehan
Although-
for our claim to that.
Oo. Although nirehistro na natin na nabanggay siya ng Palawan, ha?
Yeah.
Barangay siya.
Kalayaan.
Nagbo-voting dyan, nag-e-election
Hindi lang
dyan.
barangay, it's municipality of Kalayaan.
Yes.
As well, may hugutin tayo doon kasi if you go by the decision of the the Permanent Court of Arbitration on the case of the island of Palmas in 1928, where it said
Did not declare it
basically that ruling
a maritime feature.
No. Basically, that ruling said na effective control is stronger than discovery or maps or any other such claims. If you control the area, meaning that you have administrative functions there already, like taxation, regulation, enforcement, and all that. That's stronger than any historical claim.
Yeah.
So,
Kapag sinundan natin yan, Ed, we've lost Panganiban Reef na.
Yeah.
in a way, ganon.
And
Pero
Scarborough.
it's
Pag
considered
sinundan natin yan.
it's considered the cornerstone of all litigation with regard to sovereignty. In fact, it also touches on us, this 1928 ruling.
Kaya nga.
The Palmas
Pag nawala
Island.
sa atin ang Panganiban Reef, ang lapit-lapit niyan sa Palawan, biglang lalapad yung area ng China. Tandaan nyo yan.
Anyway, a bit of background. The Palmas decision kasi had to do with it's an island around 90 kilometers of Mindanao. It used to be owned or claimed by the Spanish. Now, of course,
Although yung Panganiban Reef is a reef. It was turned into an artificial island. At may record tayo nung pag-develop na yon from a reef
To an
to an
island.
artificial island. Meron tayong ganong
that
record.
puts in another element there, Bo, kasi nobody can claim a reef. It is not a rock.
It's a reef. Up to now,
And
it's
it
a
does
reef.
not
Yun ang
generate its
classification
own
niya. It's a
Oh.
reef.
It
So
does not
you-
generate its own
you cannot-
exclusive economic zone.
You cannot claim ownership of it. So kung sino man may mas may hawak doon, yung merong sovereign rights.
Tayo yon under the Permanent Arbitration Court decision.
So medyo iba yung ibang
Specifically
usapin doon.
mentioned dyan, Panganiban Reef doon. Na meron tayo, kaya lang hindi natin mapaalis kung sino yung nakaupo doon ngayon. Pero it's specifically mentioned dyan doon sa decision ng Dahig, yung Panganiban Reef, Mischief Reef, officially ang pangalan niya.
So
Aptly named,
all those other 8 structures where we have claims to, this is based on basically effective control.
Yung
Under
reed bank,
the-
binigay din sa atin yon, yung reed
Which
bank.
follows the principle of the Palmas rule, Palmas decision.
I was looking up din yung background ng Pag-asa Island eh. We also got it from the Taiwanese.
Oo nga. Medyo malayo-layo din naman yun sa kanila, no? Malayo yun sa kanila.
Yeah. In 1971, the Taiwanese had a garrison on what is now known as Pag-asa Island. It was T2 Island before.
T2.
They had a garrison there. May parating na bagyo. So, umalis sila.
So we came in.
Natagalan sila bumalik. So, si Marcos brought in Philippine Marines and established a garrison
Marcos
there.
Sr.
Oh. And that's the start of our occupation.
But it's an island. It's an island. It's
Well,
not a reef.
not
Saka
the-
remember,
it's a rock.
ang unang nag-claim niyang 9-dash line na yan was Taiwan.
Taiwan.
The Chinese government that moved to
The
Taiwan.
Kuomintang.
Yan ang unang nag-claim nun.
Well, it's
Yung
not
9-dash line na nasa imahinasyon nating lahat.
it's not exactly an island. It's more of a rock kasi it does not it's not capable of sustaining life on its own. We have to bring in
Ayun
food
na.
And that's what the
water.
other thing that the arbitration ruling in 2016 did, which is define all of these features,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
tama ka, we still see a lot of misinformation around and confusion over whether we own certain features in the West Philippine Sea or not. Kasi also when you translate it into Tagalog, atin ito. it also denotes ownership, and we don't have ownership over some of these features.
Oh, hindi
right?
siya, ano.
Hindi talaga siya ownership.
Except, I suppose, Pag-asa, because we've effectively been there and administering it since...
Yeah, it's an
administering it
island.
Since,
Oo.
Oh, it's an island
1971.
naman talaga. Oh, if it's an island, it
Oh,
has
it's
its
an
own
island.
EEZ. So, okay, but let's hash this out further and let's bring in our first guest. We're talking to Professor Romel Banlawi. He's the president of Philippine Society for International Security Studies and director of the Philippines-China Studies Center. Good afternoon, Professor. Can you hear me?
Hi,
Yes, good
Professor.
afternoon, Reggie, Ed, and Ma'am Ami. Good afternoon to
Hi,
the
Prof.
three of you.
Good to hear from you again.
Good to have you on the show again. I wanted to start, Professor, from a from a bird's eye perspective and have you define how you see Philippines-China relations under this Marcos administration, because we haven't spoken to you in a long time as well, so I don't think I've asked you this question. But it's been 4 years, nearly 4 years of Bongbong Marcos's administration. How would you define our relations with China at this point?
Well, we have reached the rock bottom of our bilateral relationship with China under the Marcos Jr. administration. During the previous government of Noynoy Aquino, I described our relationship with China as we reached the lowest moment, but now this is the rock bottom because this is one of the worst bilateral, worst relationship with China under under various administrations.
Worse
We've
than
seen the stronger actions from China and also a stronger reaction from the Philippines.
worse than when than the administration of former President Noynoy Aquino when he took them to court.
Yes, we experienced the lowest moment. But now we are experiencing the rock bottom of our relationship. I consider this as the first part in our bilateral ties with China.
Sir, but let me go back to something I think you said. If I heard you correctly, you referred to stronger actions from China, stronger reactions from the Philippines. So do I take it to mean that yes, mas malakas ang reaction natin, pero mas malakas kasi ang banat ng China. So it starts from their end.
Yeah, what we are seeing right now between the Philippines and China is what I call action-reaction dynamics. This is a cycle of action and reactions that both parties are acting on the reactions, and the reactions are becoming the basis of another reaction. So this is a cycle of action-reaction dynamics. And the two parties will talk.
We're losing you, sir.
Break up siya.
The connection is quite choppy
Yeah.
actually. Professor?
Can you hear us, sir?
Yes, I can hear
Nga, nawala.
you.
Yeah, medyo choppy kayo, sir. Sir, can we
Nagbe-break
try
up
calling you again? Kasi sayang naman what you're saying. We
Oo.
putol. Can we call him again?
We'll try calling him again. But in the meantime, there was a bit of breaking news at the Senate this afternoon when Senator Alan Peter Cayetano took to the rostrum to deliver a privileged speech, I think. And di ba nagkasagutan na sila with Senator Kiko Pangilinan last week. No, hindi pala siya, that was Senator Marcoleta. But in any case, Senator Cayetano mentioned that
We're brothers in Christ.
that's true, but also our resident pundit had a
Cayetano said or
behind the
claimed
scenes
that,
role.
that Raul Llamas in the past intimated to him during the panahon ni Noynoy na he was against, Raul
Yes.
was against
Here.
bringing it up or elevating the case.
So this all started because Senator Cayetano brought up this column by Ronald, naming them as chinadors, which has kind of stuck, and so now a lot of people are using that. I guess you could call it insult online. And then sabi ni Senator Cayetano na sometime during Pinoy's administration, Ronald, who was then the presidential advisor, went to him, and he was then, I think, the majority leader at the Senate, and pulled him aside and said, Alan, mali tong ginagawa ni Pinoy. He shouldn't take China to arbitration court, and he was trying to gather support to convince Pinoy not to do it. This is according to Senator Alan Cayetano, ha? And then sinabi daw niya kay Alan that China doesn't respond like that. Culturally, they're different, and we shouldn't do it multilaterally. It should be bilateral, meaning one-on-one negotiations. That's what Senator Cayetano said at the Senate plenary this afternoon. Now, of course, normally, if Ronald were here, we would grill him about it. Kaya lang, he's off this whole week. So, yes. But I haven't heard that story before. Ikaw ba nasabi na
No.
sa'yo ni Ronald yan?
No. But what's interesting is Ronald was part of the delegation.
Yes, correct. In the end,
Yes.
he was part of the delegation to
Hague.
the Hague. Yes, for the
Yeah.
arbitration court hearings.
Anyway,
Kaya,
that's
Baka magano yan, kahit naman nasa overseas siya, nakako-contact natin eh.
Oo nga, we're trying.
Yan, dumadami kaaway niya, pati yung column niya din sa Star din yun. Yung inaway siya,
Okay.
yung the hyena and the wolf.
Kaya nga eh. Okay,
Tandaan
let's bring our
back,
guest back in. Professor Banlawi, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry about earlier.
Ayan, sige. Okay na ikaw uli, Ed.
Hi, sir. Sir, I'll go back to my question kanina kasi what I understood from you was you referred to stronger actions from China resulting in stronger reactions from the Philippines. Let me just put it this way. So, sino po yung may kasalanan dito? Sino talaga yung pasimuno dun sa away na to?
Well, mahirap mag-judge, ano? But apparently, both parties are hardening their position. And for me,
Yeah.
if the two parties are hardening their positions on the disputed issues, then it's very difficult to make a peaceful settlement. So that's my observation. So both parties. So somehow both parties need to find ways to meet halfway, because if they will continue this hardening of positions, then just expect this action and reaction cycle to happen all over again. You know.
Professor, I think that's exactly what the two sides are now trying to do.
Yes, that's
Nag-ano
right.
sila eh.
That's
Yeah,
right,
I talked to the Chinese ambassador eh. Sabi niya,
they had a
although
meeting in Cebu. Yeah.
hindi siya nagsabi ha, ang sabi ng Malacanang, the president will not will support the positions of the government, no? Yung mga sinasabi nila,
Of course.
but at the same time, sinabi sa akin ng Chinese ambassador, he has actually met several times already in private with the president. At I think it's significant na may pinangalanan ng DFA na spokesman for maritime affairs. No, gusto ko nga tanungin ko na magiging impact niyan sa role ni Commodore Tariela as Coast Guard. And you're right, parehong nag-harden yung pero I think both sides are also trying to reach out at this point, ha, kasi bagong-bago tong ambassador eh. At this point, I think yun ang ginagawa nila ngayon.
That's right. That's why I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, because there is now an effort on the part of the Philippine government to also reach out with China, and now opening discussions with China. And China is also opening its channels of communication with the Philippine government to sort things out. So that's a good sign. What is your
read of this new Chinese Ambassador Jing Quan? Of course, he's an old U.S. hand, right? He spent a long time in Washington, D.C. And what does it say about the relationship that China decides to send him to the Philippines at this point in time?
Well, I met him already, and during our discussion, he put in his highest priority the issue of the South China Sea dispute and how to manage Philippines-China dispute in the South China Sea, and find ways to cooperate rather than compete in the South China Sea. So that's my understanding of him is that he's very young. He's a very young diplomat, and as a young diplomat, he just graduated from Tsinghua University. So he's prepared to deal with difficulties in the Philippines. He's ready. He's ready to deal all kinds of difficulties he might encounter in the Philippines.
Sorry,
Hindi man siya napakayang. He's actually, 50 plus na. Saka he spent 23 years in Washington.
Yeah. More
In
than
various
50 years old siya,
positions.
50
Saka
years
sabi
old.
niya sa amin, nung daw in his 23 years, 2 times under Trump,
Yeah.
ang dami-dami na niyang pinagdaanan ng mga problema, sinasanction sila, pinipersona non grata.
Correct.
And he's used to all this tension
Yeah.
actually.
So
Kaya
that's-
lang it helps, I think, that he speaks English fluently, no? Kaya nakukuha niya yung nuancing ng
Very
mga
much.
messages.
Yeah. So
Correct.
it does maybe it's also why it came out swinging, no? Nagkakaroon kagad ng online exchanges, online word of war. But Professor, what do you mean when you say that South China Sea is his topmost priority? What is his end goal here?
Well, his end goal is to find a way how to reach out with an agreement with the Philippines in order not to make the South China Sea the barometer of overall bilateral ties between the Philippines and China, because the ambassador has other projects for the Philippines. He has projects to contribute to our infrastructure development, to our poverty alleviation, our disaster management, flood control. He has many, even garbage collection, even in urban planning. He has a lot of things in mind, but unfortunately, according to him, it's very difficult to implement all these issues because the two countries are so focused on the South China Sea. So that's why his priority is to de-escalate the current tension now happening between the Philippines and China on the South China Sea issue, and find ways on how to cooperate in other fields, while at the same time the two parties are finding ways to settle their dispute.
So, sir, but let me also look at it from a different point of view. In a lot of ways, kasi diplomats are like firefighters. They're also there to douse the flames that have been caused by the Home Office or by other branches of the government. I get what you mean. It's time to de-escalate, and it's good that we have a new diplomat here who has experience with the U.S. But would that also have an impact, a significant impact on Chinese policies, for example, in the West Philippine Sea, and how it asserts itself? For example, the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy and the Chinese Coast Guard, and how they implement their policies in the West Philippine Sea.
That is why we need to really exchange views on our respective national policies on the issue, and at the same time exchange views on how the respective law enforcement authorities are mandated to implement their respective national policies. So we need not only diplomats talking, but we also need law enforcement authorities of their respective governments to also talk, so that they will avoid unintended violent encounter at sea. So that's it. But what I would like to emphasize here, Ed, and
Yes, sir.
Ami and Reggie, that when it comes to the issue of the South China Sea, there are a lot of misunderstanding on the nature of dispute. That is why we're having this kind of confusions and a lot of this information, because many people, including politicians, they don't know the two major features of the South China Sea dispute. There are two types of disputes in the South China Sea: territorial disputes and maritime jurisdictional conflict. When it comes to territorial disputes, many claimants are pursuing their sovereignty on the ownership of land features. So that's territorial dispute. Who owns the land features in the South China Sea? But at the same time, there's also another issue: who has the right on the use of water in the South China
Economic.
Sea? So that
Yes,
is
sir.
maritime jurisdictional conflict. So when it comes to our position, dyan po tayong nagkakalituhan. Halimbawa, yung West Philippine Sea, atin to. Bakit nagkakalituhan yun? Kasi under international law, you cannot own a water. Under international law, the UNCLOS and even existing international law only provide sovereign states 12 nautical miles of
12
territorial.
nautical miles.
So dyan po, may sovereignty po tayo dyan. So atin po yan. Atin po yan yung 12 nautical miles. Pero yung exclusive economic zone, hindi po yan sakop ng state ownership.
Yes,
But
sir.
we were
Yes, sir.
given exclusive economic rights. But at
Yes,
the
sir.
same time, kasi very loose yung term natin ng atin eh. So, nasa atin yung karapatan. So, yun ang context po niyan, na sa atin yung karapatan sa pag-utilize ng waters diyan. Ngayon, ang
Professor.
usapin ngayon dito, go ahead.
May isa pa siyang sinabi. Sinabi niya, since you mentioned that, no, yung territorial waters, 12 nautical miles, sabi niya laging nagiging issue dito pag dumadaan yung barko nila outside our 12 nautical miles. Sabi niya, under international law, lahat ng barko daw doon has a right to innocent passage. Tama ba yon?
Opo.
Kaya ginagawa daw malaking
Tama
issue
po.
dito, pero actually, pwede naman daw silang dumaan doon kahit hindi magpaalam sa atin.
Opo, meron po
Dahil
tayong
it's a right of innocent passage. Yun ang sinabi niya sa amin.
Oo.
Tama ba yun?
Totoo po yan. Opo, meron pong right of innocent passage yung mga coastal foreign
Yes.
vessels. Pero ang term dyan, innocent passage.
Yes, innocent.
Walang malintention. You're just passing,
Oo nga.
nakikiraan ka lang, pero kung dumadaan ka doon para mag-conduct ng economic activities or mag-conduct ng military operations or any type of military activities, that's problematic.
Kung
Pero
dumadaan lang yung
innocent
Coast
passage
Guard
lang,
nila,
walang
halimbawa
problema.
ganyan, nagpapatrol sila. Innocent
Iba
passage
naman
ba yun?
po,
Yung Coast Guard
patrol
nila,
is not an
remember, is
innocent
under
passage.
their military command.
Opo. Ang patrol po, maritime patrol is not an innocent passage. Yan po ay active
okay.
po yan. Active operations po yan. Di yan po innocent passage. Kasi nagpapatrol ka po eh. When you say you are if you're patrolling your water, that means you are making sure that your waters are protected. You're protecting your waters.
Okay.
Pero I think what we need to understand now in the context of the debate with Senator Marcoleta na gusto niya ipamigay na yung Pag-asa Island dahil sinasabi niya na the Pag-asa Island and other islands near to it are outside of our exclusive economic zone.
Well, I
Which is
mean,
true.
that is kind of true, but I take your point, Professor, that there is still a lot of confusion out there between territorial ownership and maritime jurisdiction, and we try our best. Honestly,
Yeah.
we try our best to try to make that distinction as much as we can, but also at the same time. At the same time, hindi ba the root of all of this tension is because of China's 9-dashed line that became a 10-dash line that became at some point an 11-dash line, whatever the figure is. There is a dash line that covers about 90% of the area south from them, which they call the South China Sea, right? Which is what caused the tensions as well what's caused conflict with other countries as well. And because of this so-called 9-dash line, China has claimed all of the resources, islands, and maritime zones, claiming all of these as historic rights. So hindi ba yun naman talaga
we
ang
challenge
root
that.
ng issue nito?
Yeah, we are challenging that. We are challenging that because that claim of China is very excessive, and the Philippines is not alone in challenging China for that kind of excessive claim. So, yung pan, I have no issue with that. I have no issue with that. And in fact, we challenge also that kind of excessive claim with China. Now, China has that excessive claim, and the law provides the Philippines rights over our water. So apparently, there is a bone of contention on who has the right on the water and who owns the land features. Now, let's settle it. And under international law, we tried our best to put it under international arbitration that China does not respect. Now, what's the other option left for the Philippines and China? So I think that's now the subject of our discussion with China now. How to move on so that we can avoid this untoward incident to happen again, okay, between our two countries. So ngayon, ang gusto ko lang ipaliwanag din dito na although Pag-asa Island is not part of our exclusive economic zone, we declare that as an inherent part of our territory per Presidential Decree 1596 in 1978. So, yun ang dapat nating panghawakan. Okay? Na we declare that as part of our territory. So, when it comes to the land features in the in the Kalayaan Island Group, we own it. At binilang ko nga po kung ilan yung land features na dineclare natin na part ng ating territory. 54 land features po yan. Including Pag-asa Island, Patag Island, and kung ano pa mga islands yan. Meron tayong yung 9 occupied features po natin. Ngayon, nagkaroon lang tayo ng konting problema. Kasi under PD 1596, we have this octagonal shape line, may mga waters doon. Ang sagot ngayon diyan, yung mga waters ba within that octagonal line o polygon, kung ano yung square line na yun, atin yon. So we clarify that in the international arbitration. So clarify po natin yan na
Yes. We did.
Na may mga rights tayo, exclusive economic zone tayo, pero yung mga islands na yon, ang problema, dineclare kasi ng international arbitration na walang islands rocks lahat ang features sa South China Sea.
Yes, sir.
So ang ginawa, assuming na rocks lang yung Pag-asa Island, Pag-asa Island is still entitled to 12 nautical miles territorial sea. So wala tayong gini-give up, wala tayong gini-give up na territory. Ang nangyari lang because of international arbitration, yung water na-clarify kung ano ang extent ng water na pwedeng i-claim ng Pag-asa. And that is 12 nautical miles territorial sea. So,
Professor, since we are chairing ASEAN, we are working on a code of conduct. Yun ang tinutulak ngayon ng China, yung code of conduct. Pero yung iba nag-aalala kapag tapos, finally, after so many years, parang magiging effectively legitimizing the occupation of China of all those features in the South China Sea. Anong tingin nyo doon sa observation na yun?
Very, very tricky kasi ngayon yung current discussions ngayon on the COC. I am closely watching the negotiation on the conclusion of the Code of Conduct. Tagal-tagal na, 20 years ko na pong binabantayan yan. Very tricky kasi under the current discussion, ito yung mga latest discussion po namin sa Malaysia kasi bago mag-share ang Pilipinas, I went to Malaysia 3 times talking to their experts there and counterparts. Ang direction ng discussion po ngayon na irespeto yung status quo.
Kaya nga.
Halimbawa, under our situation, we occupy 9 land features. So dapat i-respect yun. And then Vietnam occupies 21 land features in the Kalayaan Island Group. And China occupies 5 or 7 and Malaysia 5. So kumbaga, kung okupado mo na yon, hindi ka napapaalisin.
Kaya nga.
Pero
paano yung panganiban?
What about
Binigay
artificial
sa atin yun
islands?
We have sovereign rights there under the arbitration ruling.
Yeah.
Hindi ba kailangan, if we are insisting on respect for the arbitration ruling, dapat pangatawanan natin yon dun sa panganiban.
Okay. Ang arbitration ruling po ay hindi po siya nag-rule on the question of territorial ownership.
Hindi naman territorial. Sovereign rights yung binigay sa atin.
Opo, yun nga. Ipaglalaban yung water. So, yun nga. Ngayon, ang problema, may existing territorial claim yung ibang parties like Vietnam, Malaysia, and China. At ang argument nila that the land features they occupy is also entitled to 12 nautical miles territorial sea.
Hindi naman land dyan.
Ngayon ang problema. Yun nga, may problem. Ang problema kasi, when it comes to China does not respect and recognize the result of the arbitration.
Yes, exactly. Which
and
brings
therefore,
us...
they regard land features that they occupy as islands. Kaya ang tawag niya, Wangyang Island, Nansha Island. And according to them, their definition of islands are entitled to 200 nautical miles exclusive economic zone. So expansive, very excessive. So
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Kasama ba dun yung
that we need to
artificial
settle.
island? Kasi alam naman ng buong mundo na artificial yung island na yan.
Artificial islands under international law cannot claim a 200 nautical miles exclusive economic
so cannot.
zone. Kaya territorial
Okay.
sea lang ang pwede niyang i-claim dyan. 12 nautical miles of
Yeah.
territorial sea.
Yeah.
But ano ngayon ang what is the current status now of the negotiation? What is the good thing about the current status of the negotiation now? All parties now have an understanding that if they conclude the code of conduct in the South China Sea, it will be legal and substantive. And it will be in accordance with UNCLOS and other existing international law. So, ang magkakagandahan dyan, nagkaroon na ng agreement na it must be in accordance with UNCLOS and other existing
Yes.
international law.
But
So,
that-
legal
yeah.
and binding and substantive.
But that is a big if. Like, as you said, we've been waiting 20 years for the code of conduct, and one of the sticking points, exactly as you said, is whether or not it will be legally binding. But unfortunately, we have run out of time, so we have to leave that there. Thanks for talking to us, Maritime Affairs Security Expert, Professor Romel Banlawi. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
sir.
you so much.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Professor.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, you are watching Storycon on One News. We just need to take a very quick break. We'll be right back. Please stay with us.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.
We've got developing news and the stories behind the headlines. Welcome back to Storycon, the Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao.
And I'm Regina Lay, still with us. Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star. And let me bring in our second guest. We're talking to Department of Justice spokesperson, Attorney Polo Martinez. Welcome back to the Storycon, Attorney Martinez.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Nice to see you
Hi,
all.
attorney.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Well, I guess, first of all, we're talking to you about all things related to the flood control investigation. But the first thing I wanted to ask you about is these two names that have cropped up in relation to the flood control scam. Carlito Makadangdang and Jonathan So. Allegedly, they're connected to one of the flood control contractors that President Marcos named. What have you found out about them?
We know that out of these two people, so they're very popular names being brought up today. Jonathan Saw is a respondent in one of the cases pending before the DOJ. As of February 2, that specific case has already been submitted for resolution. So we can expect that the panel of prosecutors in charge of deciding that case will release the resolution pretty soon. As for the other individual related to Mr. So, Carlos Makadangdang, currently there is no complaint lodged against him in the DOJ. No complaint where he is made a respondent. So as regards to him, his participation, insofar as the DOJ is concerned, is currently out of the records, out of our competence to comment on, at least for now. No?
So that's, which one is that? That's Carlito Makadangdang.
That's right, yeah.
So wala pang
is
charges
respondent in one of the cases.
Hindi pa siya respondent at this point, but are you looking into his ties with Jonathan Saw and, to the larger picture of the flood control investigation?
Well, that's something that I cannot really comment on, as that case is specifically designated to a specific panel of prosecutors. So there are 3 of them. So until they've actually released the resolution on the matter, I can't really say. We're not in any position to actually talk about what may have perhaps the evidence revealed with respect to their participation.
Okay, fair enough. But Jonathan Saw was a respondent already. What were the charges? And what was the case about? Which particular case was this?
So he's a respondent in one of the flood control cases concerning either of 2 contractors, that's Wawaw Construction or Top Notch Catalyst Builders. The charges are, there are many. The primary charge, so to speak, would be malversation through falsification by a public officer. So related charges would be corruption of public official, direct bribery, indirect bribery, as well as a violation of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act.
Hold on. Are you saying that he's also connected to Wawaw Builders Construction?
Well, I'm not saying that he's related to the contractors. I'm just saying that, he's a respondent. Respondent din siya dun sa case involving these two contractors, either of these two contractors.
Attorney, mga corruption cases siya, ano? Paano yung hatian niyo ng Division of Labor ninyo, ng Office of the Ombudsman? Are you coordinating? After all, the Ombudsman is your former secretary, no? Meron bang Division of Labor yan? Especially now na nag-wrap up na yung ICI ng work nila, and I understand they transmitted a report to Malacanang and as well the Ombudsman and the DOJ.
Opo, so irrespective of who is the sitting ombudsman naman po, there is an existing memorandum of agreement between the DOJ and the ombudsman with respect to cases related sa flood control. In fact, alam po natin is that since a number of these cases pertain to individuals or public officials na ang salary grade are 27 or higher, then generally they're under the jurisdiction of the ombudsman. Marami pong kaso hawak namin dito. We actually conducted the investigation because of the deputization by the ombudsman. So for DOJ. So yung mga kaso po actually imbestigahan namin ngayon. These were started by the NBI DOJ Task Force on Flood Control Anomalies. Then they were referred to the ombudsman for their own investigation, referred back to us for the conduct of our preliminary investigation. Tapos binalik po ulit sa kanila for their own assessment of whether or not they should be filed with the Sandigan Bayan. So meron pong yan. There's always been a coordination.
So yung final decision kung i-file in court, ombudsman, if it's a corruption case.
If it's a Sandigan Bayan case, meaning that the officials concerned fall within the jurisdiction po of the Sandigan Bayan. So, on the converse, sabihin po natin, we also have a number of cases where there are no officials with a salary grade of 27 or above involved. Sabihin natin na DPWH officials only, engineers, below that salary grade. So, yung mga yun po, hindi na kailangan na i-refer to the ombudsman because their filing is not with the Sandigan Bayan Court, but with RTC. Depending
okay.
jurisdiction.
Sir, the Blue Ribbon Committee is expected anytime soon to recommend filing of charges against these sitting senators. Of course, whether it will push through with that, we have to wait and see.
Hinihintay natin ngayon.
Pero as far as at least the Blue Ribbon Committee chairman is concerned, that should be good to go already. I'm wondering from your end kung ano na preparations po ninyo as far as the three senators are concerned.
Opo, so, well, as far as the DOJ is concerned, dito po sa sinasabing draft committee report by the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, well, we've actually yet to see it. Once we've seen it, then as the Prosecutor General Fadulyon has mentioned before, again, everything kasi that's submitted to us will have to be vetted by the proper investigative body. So, the NBI, for instance, is an agency, an attached agency of the DOJ. So when they do file the complaint with us containing evidence that the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee had referred to the proper investigative agency, that being them, then only then can we proceed with our preliminary investigation. Kailangan may criminal complaint po na sisimulan, not from us, because of course the DOJ cannot file the criminal complaint with our own department. So it has to be coursed through the proper investigative agency.
But sir, I understand that there are already some cases submitted for resolution, like for example, the case of Joel Villanueva. I'm quoting here si Ping Lacson. Villanueva's cases were submitted for resolution with the DOJ. So I'm just wondering lang kung anong status ng mga ito. I suppose at the very least, nasa DOJ NBI task force level pa lang siya at inaakit pa lang o naakit na sa prosecutors. Can you give us an update there?
Opo, so with respect to Senator Joel Villanueva, tama kayo sir, that particular case, actually hindi lang po isa yun, tatlo po yun. So there are three cases wherein Senator Joel Villanueva is involved. And these three cases are part of the same batch of cases involving, like I said earlier, either of two contractors, Wawaw Construction or Top Notch Catalyst Builders. So ano po yan? And these are 6 cases in total. So 3 out of the 6 cases, Senator Joel Villanueva is a respondent, and you're correct to say, sir, that we've also discussed before, all these 6 cases are now submitted for resolution. Meaning na lahat ng ebidensya from both camps, both the respondents and the complainant, that being the NBI, have submitted all their evidence. And what's left to do is for the prosecutors to assess the evidence on hand and determine if sufficient na ba to file the case in court.
And how long do you expect that assessment process to carry on for? I mean, when can we expect a resolution on it?
Opo. So I cannot say for certain what date, no. What I can say is, as we've said before in the department, is that as soon as the complaint is lodged with the DOJ, we're working with a time frame. That time frame is 60 days, extendable by another 30 days. So we ask, when was the case filed? Anim po yan eh. So we'll have to backtrack and determine when exactly they were filed and count 60 days from there. Because itong batch na cases na to involving Wow Construction or Top Notch, so there's 6, but they're all working within various and different timelines. They were not filed simultaneously. And that refers to the 3 cases involving Senator Joel Villanueva too. Hindi po sila sabay-sabay final. They were filed at different dates. So you count 60 days from that time.
Hindi naman session days yan, no?
Which
What about in
definition
the
of
case
session
Senator
days are we talking
Jinggoy
about?
Estrada, kasi kasama siya dun sa mga recommendations sa draft report na na-leak, na hindi naman dinideny ni Ping Lacson.
Well, currently po, we know that Senator Jinggoy Estrada has a pending case with the DOJ, the charge being for plunder. That's the main charge. Again, these cases don't involve just one charge. It's a number of charges, but then you could say that there's one main charge that people may be interested in, or the biggest charge, and that's plunder in this case. So that's the case he is currently facing. He's currently in, rather. The preliminary investigation has begun. In fact, the first setting was last February 2. Ang susunod po na setting for his case is February 12. At which point, he will have to file his counter affidavit, because the first setting on Feb 2 was specifically for the receipt of the complaint and the evidence against him and all the other respondents.
Linawin lang namin, kapag nagkaroon ng court arrest warrant, kahit in session ng Senate, they can be arrested because that's not related to their job, no?
Opo, well, the constitutional provision says that they have parliamentary immunity. So far as, well, it's specific, kailangan ang kaso po dapat dyan, the crime cannot exceed the penalty for which cannot exceed 6 years. So, may threshold, po yan,
Yung immunity nila.
Opo. So that's
So kung ganyan, that's plunder, pwede silang arestuhin.
Opo, necessarily, well, based on the provision of the law.
Okay, so your point being that even though we don't see it, all of these cases are moving along.
Yes, that's correct. And of course, again, I like to reiterate na iba-iba yung timeline for these cases. They were not all filed simultaneously. Each case has its own pending incidents. What I mean by that is necessarily because iba-iba ang respondents per case, may kanya-kanyang motion mga fina-file yung mga yan. Some may have filed for extension, or otherwise, it's hard to say because there are just a number of cases and the number of motions that they could be filing with respect to the particular case that they're involved in. It's really a lot. Kaya, but that's correct to say that they're all moving.
Okay, Attorney, can I just come back to Jonathan So and Carlito Macadangdang? You said Jonathan So was already a respondent, but you didn't mention which particular flood control project this was for. Was this related to the ones that were earlier filed in Oriental Mindoro or different?
No, these are all in Bulacan.
Oh, Bulacan.
First District.
Which first district then?
Yes, dun pa rin.
Okay, so this is a new set of cases then?
This is, I wouldn't say new because these were filed, again, the fact that it's now been submitted for resolution means that the evidence have all been submitted by both camps, by both respondents, and by the complainant. So it was filed some time ago. I wouldn't say it's new.
Okay. Has the DOJ gotten hold of the report from AMLAC, which apparently traced this very unusual surge their bank accounts and the income related to their income, because apparently these guys got famous for being for some of their small businesses like Show My King and House of Franchise and so on and so forth. So people are now questioning how they became billionaires, right? And AMLAC had traced their money trail and found that there were unusual surges starting from 2023, if I'm not mistaken. Have you gotten a hold of that report?
So we have not. The DOJ currently is not privy to the investigation being conducted by AMLAC with respect to these accounts. Now, ordinarily, the AMLAC only files a petition for freeze order with the Court of Appeals to the OSG as the counsel for the state. And this is only done normally when a complaint has already been lodged with the DOJ with respect to a particular individual. In this case, however, I think we would like to clarify, the DOJ would like to clarify that the AMLAC investigated and filed these petitions for freeze order on its own volition, in its own capacity.
Separate from
separate from us. That's correct. Separate from the DOJ. So we're not privy to what exactly they found or what grounds they invoked in their finding of probable cause to file these petitions with the Court of Appeals.
Actually, I think the Court of Appeals has granted that freeze order for all of their many bank accounts related to these two individuals. Okay, Ed?
Are good?
Okay, we're going to let you go because I understand you also have a meeting at 5 o'clock. But thanks so much for talking to us today. Attorney Polo Martinez, spokesperson for the DOJ. We'll have you back on another time when you're free.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
Attorney.
you. Thank you po.
Okay. Mahaba-haba.
So walang reklamo siya sa AMLAC kasi si Ombudsman nagrereklamo doon sa Anti-Money Laundering Council hindi
nila makuha yung
bagal daw
SALN.
umaksyon sa mga request nila for freeze orders.
Oo. And then of course, the other problem that the Ombudsman has is the access to the SALNs. Apparently, nahihirapan to get the SALNs of the members of the lower house, which he was supposed to talk to Speaker Boji D about. Di ko lang alam if natuloy if that meeting
Susulatan daw niya, di ba?
Kasi ang
Baka wala pa
repository
sagot.
ng lower house SALNs is the Secretary General.
Correct.
Hindi, kailangan daw ng plenary approval.
But again,
nagsabi na actually yung SecGen, yun ang nirereklamo ni Ombudsman. Sinabi daw ng Office of the SecGen, you need plenary approval if you want the SALNs.
But again, we keep coming back to the point that the Ombudsman is empowered by law to access these.
I think empowered siya if there is a formal investigation ongoing.
If there's reasonable.
Pero kung nag-i-initiate pa lang siya ng sino kaya sa mga to ang kailangan naming imbestigahan.
If there is,
and he wants some reference. Hindi yata ba, yun ang sinasabi yata nila. I'm not sure.
No, I think he's empowered by law to investigate based on reasonable grounds. But remember as well that even many months ago, may nagsabi na, I can't remember who told this to us, that there were at least 67 members of the lower house that could get
67.
implicated. I think this was Senator Lacson who told us there were at least 67 members that could get implicated, or was it Benjamin Magalong, that could get implicated in this flood control.
Lahat ng yan ang kino-quote na figure,
Meaning
67. There are 67.
they had already seen something, right? Hindi ito yung parang, okay, there's 300 members of the lower house, who do we start with? Hindi ganun eh. Parang there were already names that had been implicated in some of these largest contractors. Ito nga daw yung so-called contractors, di ba? So that's already probable cause, I think. But
kapag ganon, kapag naka-initiate na siya, he can order. He can subpoena all the documents he wants eh.
Correct.
Ang problema lang, kung wala pang formal investigation, di ko lang alam, siguro kailangan tanungin natin si Cheloy Garafil. Ano ba yung initiation yung
correct.
Oo. Para lang malinawan. Ewan ko yung iniintay ko ngayon yung yung mga latest dyan sa dami-dami nangyayari sabay-sabay.
Yes.
Impeachment.
Okay,
So,
we have to go on another very quick break, but we will be right back. Please stay with us.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.
Okay, welcome back to Storycon, the Story Conference. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao, and of course with us, Ami Pamintuan, ng Editor-in-Chief ng Philippine Star. Nag-message si Professor Banlawi. Ed, Pag-asa is an integral part of Philippine territory. We have established effective occupation and administration. That's what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
At this particular
Sinabi
point,
naman niya yun,
yung parang cornerstone ngayon of
jurisprudence
on sovereignty issues is yung
Administrative
dahil ng
control.
Palmas decision ng arbitral ng Philippine Permanent Court of
Permanent.
Arbitration in 1928, which simply says effective occupation trumps claims to historical claims and discovery claims.
Island dyan, island in the reef.
Which one?
That's for
Well,
islands.
Yung ruling. It's an island.
To be technical about it, it's a rock, not a low tide elevation. Yung kasing iba, low tide elevations yung mga reef
Yun yung reef.
So hindi mo
kaya
pwedeng
hindi kasama
angkinin
yung
yung mga
reef.
yon, yung mga low tide elevations. Yung rocks are free for all.
And again, does not generate its own EEZ.
Only territorial sea. So, nautical miles. So, yun. Oh, okay. We have our guest already here. And also, joining us this afternoon, Okta Research President Ranjit Rai. Sir, magandang hapon and welcome back. We just saw you last week.
Yeah, I know. Thank you for inviting us. We're very honored always to be in your show. And thank you for always utilizing our data.
Yes, sir. Sir, run us through your latest survey.
Okay, so
Same point.
so we have our latest survey, and it was conducted again in the fourth quarter. We're releasing all our fourth quarters historically sa Okta in January. So it's a plethora of studies. This study was part of a broader study, a multi-probe study on governance and democracy, and we chose to release these first two probes. No? And the first probe was really to measure the trust in national government's ability to address problems. And majority of Filipinos express trust that the government is able to solve our nation's challenges. No? And that's 55% with 20% distrust and 25% undecided. A second question, which I think has caught the media, interest, is the study on representation. So, what's coming out of the Okta study is that when it comes to our politicians, majority of Filipinos believe that politicians disregard their views. That's 61%. Only 31% believe that elected officials value what people think. And these are our regular voters, no? Also, so these are two different perspectives. One initial perception is that Filipinos trust institutions more than their politicians.
Sir, but
Malinaw ba yung line nyo? I can't understand what you mean by government institutions.
Yeah,
The politicians, kasi maraming institutions are actually run by
Yes, sir.
politicians.
Yeah. So here the focus is on, a good question is, it measures two distinct dimensions of democratic legitimacy. So one is institutional capacity. Can government get things done? And majority of Filipinos say yes. So the other one is
Ano yung definition nyo ng government institution?
government, national government lang siya. Yun lang yung amin yun lang yung aming
Parang general, the government.
general.
The government.
That could mean local government, the national government. That could mean not the person but institutions. A second question, which is unrelated to the first one, no, but is part of this other probe, is to look at how do elected officials listen. Because it talks about the quality of our own democracy also. The context for this is that in the third quarter last year, we came out with a study saying that nearly 8 out of 10 Filipinos support democracy despite its problems. And only 30% think are satisfied with the quality of our democracy. So this is the second layer of questions now, looking at where the problem lies. Is it just in institutions? Obviously it is, no? But they're also looking at the quality of our own the political responsiveness of our elected leaders. And here the elected leaders are not just Congress, but also local government officials.
So, sir, let me look at the first layer first. I don't want to sound cynical, pero parang napaka-supremely optimistic naman ng mga Pilipino.
Oo nga.
Okay, let me put it this way. Kasi
Considering all the scandals happening.
55% of Filipinos trust that the government
You think that's too high?
will be able to solve their problems.
Yeah.
But
Di ba?
we have elections every
Di ba
3 years.
parang ano yun, yung niloloko natin, nasa kuweba ka.
But,
Wala akong
but when
sinabi.
you look at the numbers, when you look at the granular numbers, there is majority, but it's conditional on performance. So that's one thing. So a second thing, siguro takeaway from this is Filipinos distinguish between institutions and politicians. So that's the first thing, no? And there's a third takeaway is that there's a gap, no? You can call it a representation gap, no? Across socioeconomic classes, regions, majority still feel, no, elected officials don't value their views. And even at the local level, no, where you would think that proximity would matter, hindi rin, no? Unresponsive rin ang perception, no? So this is part of a broader study on the quality of our democracy, no? So yun yung basically our findings show that Filipinos distinguish between government performance and political responsiveness, and majority believe, no, that national government can address these problems. So meaning they believe more in institutions than in politicians, but a large majority feel, in a sense, unheard by their elected officials.
Yes, sir. Sir, I get the distinction naman pero ang ano ko lang, well, going back to Ami's question kanina, di ba, in the end policy is decided on by the politicians and then implemented supposedly by the bureaucracy. I'm just wondering how we can square those two levels and make it
I think one way to appreciate this survey is to take them isolated from one another. We're asking about government's capacity, perception of trust in government's ability to get things done. And majority still believe that that's true. A second question, unrelated to the first one, was really to look at are our politics responsive to electorate? So again, these are all probes together with other probes we will be releasing also this week, which will look at the quality of our democracy. And I think it's food for thought, especially now that we're talking about dynasties. Here's a number that shows, no, that if majority, the new data has come out that the super majority in Congress is really a super majority of dynasties, and the indictment of those dynasties is they're unresponsive. People, at least, no, in their view, in their perception, feel unheard, no, as far as these representatives are concerned, and that cuts across not just members of Congress but also the dynasties that we have in the local government sector, where majority are still political dynasties. So in a sense, this can also be utilized, to see some aspect of that, no. So our countrymen can see, okay, government provides disaster relief, ayuda, and all of this. They can see that institutions largely provide them these services, but they can distinguish between the institution and the politician, who they believe does not listen to them. So nakita niyo yung I think it shows some level of maturity also.
I have the same question as Edib, because the majority trust, on the one hand, you're saying there's majority trust in government performance and institutions, but that's not matched by Filipinos' confidence in their responsiveness of their politicians. Parang there seems to be a disconnect there to me.
Yeah. And then they feel it's possible. It's possible. Again, this is not supported by the data yet, but it's possible that Filipinos trust institutions more than their politicians. But the sum total of institutions cannot be just politicians. So that assumption is also not completely correct. Institutions do have some autonomy from politicians. They have their bureaucracy, they have their civil service, both at the local and national government. And there are government people in government, no, who are responding to everyday crisis, everyday needs of our people. And I think our own countrymen, at least in the survey, saying that, okay, we believe government can still solve our problems, but it's a different story when we talk about trust in our politicians. And I guess this is also a product ren of the period, no, the context, the fourth quarter, where, the political class took a hit because of these scandals, no,
Yes,
this
sir.
corruption, allegations of corruption
Yes, sir.
by members of
Well,
Congress.
that's true, sir. But
Ano,
also,
yeah.
but
Two separate studies, yeah.
yes, sir. But the bureaucracy also took a large hit kasi, for example, your
PPWH.
your Bulacan First District of officials, they're not politicians, pero
It's been wiped out, that whole first district engineering office.
Yeah.
Practically
it's
everyone
true.
is out.
I agree. But this is what our people are saying.
yes, sir.
When asked that question, do you still trust in government institutions? Basically, they're saying, at least 55% are saying, yes, no, that government can still solve the country's problems. But on a separate note, separate study saying, do you feel that you're voiceless and faceless as far as our own our representatives are concerned? The answer is yes. Majority is saying yes, and that points to this is from my perspective, no, a problem, no, in our political system where people we are supposed to represent our interests, articulate and aggregate our interests, are the very people who don't listen to us. So I think that's a structural political challenge as far as our system is concerned. So how do we now reform that? No, of course, reform of the party system, ending political dynasties, bringing people back into the governance framework. So the question is, are our politicians responsive to our people? And the answer of the everyday Filipino is no.
This
Professor, I'll ask you now, as you being a political scientist, tingin nyo magkakaroon na impact yan, lack of trust in politicians on the elections? Malapit na yan mga 2.5 years na lang.
Well, it's
Pero kaya nag-impact yan?
Sana. I mean, all of our efforts naman is to inform, educate, and empower our voters. In the end, we make democracy work. It's not the politician, neither is it just the institution, and neither are the simple findings of our survey enough, no, to explain the complex realities of our governance. Again, our goal here was just to measure. At a time when we had, in the view of others and of most people, a political crisis. So how people view democracy. Four things. Number one, Filipinos are pro-democracy. 8 out of 10 are saying they will not leave democracy or let go of democracy even with all its problems. But despite that, they're unsatisfied with its performance, only 30%. That's the third quarter study. This is the fourth quarter. This is just in December. We asked some questions. What are some of the problem areas? No? Do you feel that our political elites are responsive? The answer is no. They don't listen to us. We feel unheard. And these are the people, elected officials, supposed to represent us. They're supposed to articulate and aggregate our interests and convert it into responsive, effective government programs. But most people feel that they don't listen. These elite politicians do not listen to them. On the other hand, thankfully, there's still some belief in our government institutions. That still, they believe, despite all the problems and challenges, that government institutionally can still solve our problems. So all these, you can draw so many conclusions out of this, or possible implications of this. But these are, I think, important findings because hardly anyone's really measuring it.
Yeah. Prof, just quickly, this 55% trust in the government's ability to solve national problems, how does it compare to previous years?
Okay, this is our first attempt at measuring it. Yes, but we have had some other probes in the past, and it depends on the particular context. Like, for example, towards when we look at particular institutions like Congress, the executive. So this actually squares off with our latest finding for the executive. When you look at the president's performance ratings as president, and you look at government's performance ratings here, they're consistent, no? They're above 50%. But when you talk about trust in politicians and trust in the president also, who is considered also a politician, mababa. So yun yung parang consistency, no? They square off. Is that the right term? No, they're consistent with all the other probes we released in the fourth quarter. So they reinforce that particular picture. That while we are in crisis and that people are in the probes are saying these are the top 10 or top 5 urgent national concerns, they believe that institutions still matter and that the government, in their eyes, can get the job done. But do they trust their politicians? I think from this survey and the other probes that we have had in the past, trust in politicians have really gone down. And here, you can even say Filipinos majority trust institutions more than the politicians that seem to or say that they represent us.
Sir, do we have previous surveys that ask the same question? Just so that we have a reference point. Like for
You said
example,
this is their first such attempt.
it's a first attempt.
That is the first attempt, to ask this question. But there are other probes that sort of reinforce these findings also. So when you look at the survey of, let's say, the House of Representatives, the Senate, they've all gone down. These are, the bastions of our so-called representative democracy. So again, it's an indictment of our politicians, largely coming from elite families, from, dynasties. And by the way, this is the discussion in the last few weeks, no? How do we push reform, no, in our political system via the anti-dynasty law? And the question of dynasties will be studied in our first quarter here. We're going to study it this Feb, no? We're running another survey to see how people understand dynasties and their support for an anti-dynasty law. So this is all part of a broader probe to look at where we are in terms of governance and democracy at this particular juncture in the life of our country.
Visayas
Kasi
records the
medyo
highest level of
nakakalito
trust.
yung politician and government institutions.
Yeah.
Because they are running the government.
They're too...
They are ruining,
And also,
Yeah.
running the government.
and also the fact that
Hindi ruining.
also the fact
There
that
is distrust, by the way. There's still a significant distrust, no?
Yeah,
When you look at the data on government, can the government get things done? You're trying to look at institutional capacity versus political responsiveness. Ang laki ng distrust, 20%, and 20% are undecided. And trust is highest in Visayas, but when you look at NCR and balance the zone, it's low. It's below 50%. So these are the nuances. But when you look at the question, are we being heard by our politicians? It's very clear. 61 say they do not, and only 31 say they do. Okay, so there's a 9% that's undecided, and it cuts across socioeconomic sectors. It cuts across regions. So
I feel like there's a bit of a surprise here for us kasi as I see it nga, it seems like it doesn't match up, although as you clearly explained, it does align, the results do align. But I wonder as well whether there's an element of not understanding what the government's role is really all about. Because I will never forget this. There was one particular survey where people were asked to rate their impressions, I believe, of the top 4 highest officials of the land: president, vice president, speaker, senate president. And one of the responses was that people believed that it's the House Speaker's job to carry out the president's mandate, to follow whatever he says, right? Which is clearly not the case.
Hindi ba?
In an ideal world, diba? In a functioning democracy, these are co-equal branches of government, right? They check and balance each other. Pero people believe that the Senate President, the House Speaker are there to carry out the President's mandate and to do whatever he says. So I wonder as well if there's an element of that here, na hindi lang nila...
It's always possible because there's 9% in the first question that's undecided. So can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That it's very possible, Regina, no, But it's clear here that Filipinos separate institutions from politicians. They believe that government, at least a small majority, believe that government can solve our problems. Institutions matter. And at the second level, they're more distrustful of our politicians. So this is how they view things. They trust government more than the politician. And these are
Pero hindi nila
elected
nakikita na
officials. Elected officials. These are Congress and government officials. Very clear.
Hindi nila nakikita na the politician is part of the government.
Yeah.
Politician heads City Hall, the provincial capital,
Exactly.
Congress, Malacanang,
Exactly.
judiciary lang ang hindi politician.
Exactly. So, but these are two separate questions, and we just put two probes together in this report, just to show you if Filipinos can separate institutions from institutional capacity from political responsiveness. And these are two different questions. They're not the same. They're not. We just included them in one report. In the next report, we're going to look at satisfaction with democracy and looking at what kind of leaders Filipinos look up to. Are they looking up to, let's say, today's the death anniversary, a birthday, of birthday of former President Noynoy Aquino,
Yesterday.
The consummate liberal and democrat. Are Filipinos wanting that kind of leader, or are they wanting the kind of leader like Rodrigo Duterte, the strong ruler? So that's what we're going to release.
Baka kailangan tanungin nyo if they understand what democracy is or what their understanding of
definition
democracy.
Correct.
It's a good question. It's a good question. So
Kasi if you ask the
procedural,
Duterte people, they're going to say that it is part of their democratic space yung pinagagagawa nila pag tinanong mo sila. Hindi naman nila sasabihin na authoritarian sila or something like that.
No, but you can find out from surveys because we have a world value survey, and some of the questions we ask here are really just repetitions of that global survey, which really shows almost the same pattern that people are pro-democracy, but they're very unsatisfied with the quality of democracy, whether in the United States or in the Philippines. And number two, we're still looking at the data, but there is also a strong belief among so-called supporters of democracy for strong leaders. So we'll see if that's the reality here in the Philippines.
We'll have to.
That's a statement. Those findings are actually interesting to look at because we're now all looking at 2028.
Correct.
And we're looking at this whole campaign for political dynasties. And now we're seeing these dynasties are not responsive.
Correct. Well,
aside from all the problems that they provide, or they create for our political system, this study shows that people are not heard.
We'll tackle that another time. Thank you so much for joining Storycon and breaking down the results of your latest survey, Octa Research President Ranjit Rai.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May response na si Resident Pandit Ronald Llamas sa pag-mention sa kanya ni Senator Alan Peter Cayetano. He says, hindi man lang ako nasabihan na topic pala ako sa Senado. 10,000 ang tawa ko. That is his
Medyo incomplete pa yung sagot.
That is his response. He is now overseas, but he posted that on his Facebook page. Pero oo nga, tama si Octa President Ranjit Rai. It was President Pinoy's birthday yesterday, which brought up all of these Facebook posts and, I was gonna say eulogy, hindi, but tributes to him during his administration. And one of the things I'll never forget is that, and this was shortly after I moved back to the country, was that debt to GDP ratio at that time was just about 50%, which is a really good level, 50% of GDP.
Ngayon, above 60 na tayo,
correct.
slightly above.
Remember, Amy, there was a time na when the government said, hindi tayo lalagpas ng 60%. Because 60% is roughly the gold standard internationally, right? As long as you're below 60, you're okay. But now we are inching in the wrong direction. We are now at about 63% debt to GDP. And of course, the massive hit to the budget after this flood control controversy. Pero yun nga, it was nice to backtrack, look back and think about that again.
Overtime na tayo.
Hindi pa, 5:29. Pero yes, that was Pinoy's birthday yesterday. And today, it's my daughter's birthday. So happy birthday, Jordan.
Happy birthday.
That's why I'm wearing red. Thank you for joining Storycon today. Ami Pomintuan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star. Join us again tomorrow, 4 p.m. for Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao, kapatid. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.